Alert, alert. Unauthorized vessel detected in Sector 9. The piercing alarm jolted me from my slumber, causing my 4 tentacles to spasm. What in the name of the great void was happening at this hour? My name is Zort Quibble, Senior Diplomatic Officer of the Galactic Confederation, and I was about to have the worst day of my 382 cycle existence. Officer Quibble, shouted Commander Plex through the comm system. Report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation. I groaned, my translucent skin turning a deeper shade of purple with annoyance. Yes, Commander. I'm on my way. As I slithered through the pristine hallways of our diplomatic vessel, the Harmonious Accord, I pondered what could possibly warrant waking me during my designated rest period. The Confederation hadn't encountered a new species in over 50 cycles. Most of my job these days involved mediating trade disputes between the gelatinous blob collective and the silicon-based hive mind. Boring stuff, really. The bridge doors whooshed open, revealing chaos. Commander Plex, with his 3 eyes bulging more than usual, was frantically waving his sensory appendages at the main view screen. Officer Quibble. Thank the void you're here. Look at this, he exclaimed, pointing at what appeared to be, well, the ugliest spaceship I'd ever seen. The vessel was boxy, asymmetrical, and covered in what appeared to be crude patches. It looked like something assembled by a juvenile Glarkon with no sense of aesthetic harmony. Most bizarrely, it had Dave's delivery service, we bring the goods, you bring the credits, painted on its hull in garish colors. What am I looking at, Commander? I asked, blinking my 7 eyes in sequence to clear the sleep from them. An unknown species, Officer Quibble. They've responded to our standard greeting by sending this. He gestured to our communications officer, Blip. Blip tapped his console with one of his 17 fingers, and a crackling audio message played through the bridge speakers. Hey there, spacey neighbors. Captain Dave Thornton of Earth, at your service. We come in peace and all that jazz. Mind if we dock? Our bathroom's been broken for 3 days, and trust me, you don't want to smell what that's doing to crew morale. Plus, we've got some killer hot sauce you might want to trade for. Over and out. The bridge fell silent. I could hear the soft pulsing of Commander Plex's anxiety glands. Did that creature just threaten us with killer sauce? Whispered Navigation Officer Glorm, his eye stalks quivering. I sighed. No, I believe it's a figure of speech. Their translator must be functioning imperfectly. Though privately, I wasn't entirely sure. Have we run a weapons scan? Yes, replied Security Officer Zant. And that's the problem. They're armed to the teeth with Class 9 projectile weapons, high-energy plasma cannons, and something our system can't even identify. All highly illegal under Confederation law. Well, this was troubling. A new species with illegal weapons wanting to dock with our diplomatic vessel? Protocol dictated immediate retreat and notification of the Confederation Council. But something about this Dave seemed more bumbling than threatening. Have they made any aggressive moves? I asked. No, admitted Commander Plex. They've just been sitting there, occasionally transmitting what appears to be rhythmic vibrations they call music. It's quite unsettling. I made a decision. Let them dock. What? Chorused the bridge crew in unison. But sir, protested Security Officer Zant, protocol clearly states. I know the protocol, I interrupted. But I also know that we represent the Galactic Confederation. If this is indeed a new species, our first contact should be diplomatic, not fearful. Besides, I'm curious about this hot sauce. And that, dear readers, is how I first met the humans. Their docking procedure was alarming, to say the least. They bumped against our perfectly calibrated airlock twice before finally connecting with a metallic clang that sent vibrations through the entire ship. Sorry about that, came Dave's voice through the comm. Docking's never been my strong suit. My ex-wife would agree. Hey. I had no idea what that meant, but I positioned myself at the airlock with a small security detail, all of us wearing our ceremonial diplomatic robes. First impressions matter. The airlock hissed open, and there stood the strangest creature I'd ever seen. Bipedal, with only 2 arms, 2 eyes, and fur only on the top of its head. It wore some sort of colorful fabric covering that read Universe's okayest delivery captain across its torso. Behind it stood 3 similar creatures of varying sizes and colors. "Heya," said the first human, presumably Dave. "Thanks for letting us dock. I'm Dave, that's Rajiv, that's Leo, and the grumpy one is Valentina. We're humans from Earth, and boy, are our arms tired from flying through space." He then made a strange barking sound that I would later learn was laughter. None of us moved. None of us knew how to respond to such an informal greeting. Finally, I composed myself. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Senior Diplomatic Officer Zort Quibble of the Galactic Confederation. We welcome you in peace." "Cool, cool," said Dave, looking around our pristine airlock with wide eyes. "So, about that bathroom." After addressing their unusual biological needs, apparently humans expel waste several times per day, how inefficient, we convened in our conference room. Commander Plex was still nervous, his anxiety glands now visibly pulsating beneath his uniform. So, I began formally, "What brings your species to this sector of the galaxy?" Dave leaned back in his chair, putting his feet up on our sacred conference table. Commander Plex nearly fainted. "Simple delivery run, my tentacled friend. Got a shipment of hot sauce, coffee beans, and comedy holovids for a mining colony in the next system over. Our nav system picked up your ship, and we figured, hey, why not say hello to the neighbors?" The human called Valentina, who had unusually vibrant red-head fur, rolled her eyes. "What Dave means is that we got lost. Because someone insisted that he knew a shortcut." Dave pointed at her. "Hey, that nebula looked just like the one on the map." "It was a coffee stain on the screen, Dave," said Rajiv, the tallest of the humans, with darker skin than the others. Leo, the youngest-looking human with curly yellow head fur, snickered. "Classic Dave." I was beginning to wonder if these creatures were actually the dominant life forms of their planet, or perhaps some sort of escaped entertainment performers. "I notice your vessel is armed," I said carefully. "Are you aware that energy weapons and projectile launchers are Class 9 contraband in Confederation space?" All 4 humans looked genuinely surprised. "Are they?" asked Dave. "Huh. Nobody told us. We just figured, space is dangerous. Better safe than sorry, right?" "Yeah," added Leo, "there are space pirates out there, man." "There are no space pirates," I clarified. "The Confederation has maintained peace across 78% of the known galaxy for over 2,000 cycles." The humans exchanged glances. "What about the other 22%? asked Valentina pointedly. An excellent question, actually. One that made Commander Plex's anxiety glands throb visibly. "Those regions are in diplomatic negotiations," I answered carefully. Said Valentina, clearly not convinced. "Sounds like space pirates to me." I decided to change the subject. "You mentioned trade. What is this hot sauce you speak of?" Dave's face lit up. Only the greatest contribution to galactic cuisine ever. Here we brought samples. Before we could stop him, he pulled out a small red bottle from his pocket and squirted a drop of red liquid onto a plate. Security Officer Zant immediately scanned it. "Sir, it contains capsaicin. That's a neurological toxin." The humans burst into their barking laughter again. "It's not a toxin," explained Rajiv. "Well, technically it is, but we eat it for fun. It makes food spicy." "You consume toxins for entertainment?" asked Commander Plex weakly. "Sure do," said Dave. This one's called Supernova Death Punch. Only 1,000,000 Scoville units. The mild stuff. I was simultaneously horrified and fascinated. And what is the purpose of voluntarily consuming pain-inducing substances? The humans looked at each other, seemingly unable to articulate a reason. Because it's awesome, offered Leo. It makes the beer taste better, added Dave. Cultural tradition, said Rajiv, more diplomatically. Macho nonsense, muttered Valentina. I decided to be brave. For diplomatic relations, I would like to try this hot sauce. The bridge crew gasped. Commander Plex's anxiety glands were now fully distended. Officer Quibble, I must protest, he began. Noted, Commander, I said, extending one tentacle. But how dangerous can it be if they consume it regularly? Dave placed a minuscule drop on my sensory pad. Go easy, buddy. Start small. I touched the drop to my taste receptor. What followed can only be described as a religious experience. Pain, yes, incredible pain, but followed by a cascade of complex flavor profiles my sensory system had never encountered. My entire body flashed through 7 different colors in rapid succession. Great void, I exclaimed, all 7 of my eyes watering profusely. It burns. It is magnificent. The humans cheered. Dave patted me on what he probably thought was my shoulder. It was actually my reproductive sac, but I didn't have the heart to correct him. Another convert to the Church of Capsaicin, he proclaimed. As I recovered from the hot sauce experience, something odd happened on the bridge. The tension broke. My crew, seeing that I had survived the human toxin, became curious rather than fearful. Soon, others were trying the hot sauce, with varied and amusing reactions. Officer Blip turned completely transparent and hiccuped bubbles for 10 minutes straight. The humans, for their part, seemed genuinely delighted by our reactions. They showed none of the superiority or aggression one might expect from a species carrying so many weapons. Instead, they told jokes, most of which made no sense to us, shared stories of their home planet, which sounded terrifying. They have organisms called mosquitoes that actually extract blood from other creatures, and ask endless questions about the Confederation. So let me get this straight, said Valentina after a lengthy explanation of our governing structure. Your entire galactic civilization has been at peace for thousands of years. You've developed faster than light travel. And you've united hundreds of species under one banner, but you don't have spicy food. Or comedy? Added Leo. Your entertainment is all educational programs and harmony music? Yeah, that sounds boring as hell, said Dave. No offense. I should have been offended. But strangely, I wasn't. There was something refreshing about their direct manner of speaking. Our society values harmony and knowledge, I explained. In conflict, even simulated conflict in entertainment, is seen as disruptive to social cohesion. But conflict drives progress, argued Rajiv. Without challenging the status quo, how do you innovate? Another excellent question, one that, embarrassingly, I had never considered. Our conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission. Commander Plex answered it, then turned to me with all 3 of his eyes wide. Sir, it's the Vraxians. They've detected the human vessel and are demanding we surrender it for inspection. They say humans are violating 17 different weapons treaties. Ah, the Vraxians. A militaristic species that had reluctantly joined the Confederation only 30 cycles ago. They still maintained their own security force and took particular delight in enforcing Confederation regulations. Tell them we're handling the situation diplomatically, I responded. They're not accepting that answer, sir. They've deployed 3 cruisers to our location. They'll arrive in approximately 2 hours. The humans looked concerned. Who are these Vraxian dudes? Asked Dave. They sound uptight. The Vraxians are strict adherents to Confederation law I explained diplomatically, particularly regarding weapons restrictions. Will they confiscate our ship? Asked Valentina, cutting straight to the point. I hesitated. It's possible. Your weapons systems are highly illegal. They might impound your vessel pending a full investigation. That's our livelihood, man, exclaimed Leo. All our stuff is on that ship. And we've got a delivery schedule to keep, added Dave. People are counting on their hot sauce. I felt genuinely conflicted. These humans, despite their strange ways and illegal weapons, hadn't shown any aggressive intent. They seemed like harmless traders who simply hadn't known the rules. Perhaps we could assist you in temporarily disarming your vessel, I suggested, if your weapons were disabled when the Vraxians arrived. No dice, interrupted Valentina. Those weapons are built into the ship's systems. We'd have to dismantle half the engine room. Besides, like Leo said, there are space pirates out there. In the 22%, added Rajiv with a knowing look. Commander Plex's anxiety glands were now fully inflated, threatening to burst through his uniform. Sir, what are we going to do? If we help them evade inspection, we could be accused of conspiracy against the Confederation. I looked at the humans, these strange, spicy food-eating, joke-telling, heavily armed beings who had bumbled into our lives. Something told me that the galaxy would be more interesting with humans in it. We have 2 hours, I said finally. Let's use them wisely. And that was how Operation Hot Sauce began the most ridiculous and possibly treasonous mission of my diplomatic career. So let me make sure I understand this plan correctly, said Commander Plex, his anxiety glands now so swollen they resembled small purple balloons protruding from his neck. We're going to hide an illegally armed alien vessel inside our diplomatic ship's cargo bay, lie to Vraxian authorities, and potentially jeopardize our careers and the reputation of the entire Galactic Confederation because we like their hot sauce. When he put it that way, it did sound rather absurd. Not just the hot sauce, I clarified, waving my primary tentacle dismissively. Also because they made Officer Blip laugh so hard he molted 3 days early. Across the room, Officer Blip, now sporting a shimmery new exoskeleton, nodded enthusiastically. The one about the human, the Zorgian, and the quantum physicist walking into a drinking establishment was particularly stimulating. Dave beamed with pride. See? We're cultural ambassadors, bringing the gift of dad jokes to the stars. Valentina rolled her eyes. If the fate of humanity rests on Dave's jokes, we're doomed. I prefer to think of it as creative diplomatic maneuvering, I said to Commander Plex. We're not hiding them. We're facilitating a cultural exchange while their weapons systems undergo voluntary inspection. Commander Plex's middle eye twitched violently. The Vraxians won't see it that way. The Vraxians don't see anything anyway except their way, I countered. Remember when they tried to classify musical instruments as audio assault weapons? Sounds like my kind of folks, Leo muttered sarcastically, busy helping our engineering team measure the dimensions of their ship. Real party animals. The plan was relatively simple, though not without risk. The human ship, the colorfully named Cash Money Express, would be partially disassembled and hidden within our larger diplomatic vessel's rarely used cargo hold. We would claim that the humans were actually a diplomatic delegation we'd encountered, and that we were transporting them to Confederation headquarters for official first contact protocols. Rajiv, how's the weapon system disconnection coming along? I called across our hangar bay. The tall human emerged from beneath their ship, his face streaked with some black substance. But it's not. These systems are integrated into the ship's power core. Disabling them would basically kill the entire vessel. Can't you just unplug them? Asked Security Officer Zant hopefully. Rajiv laughed. That's not how human technology works. We build redundancies into redundancies. It's all connected. Like your digestive systems, I noted. Having been thoroughly briefed on human biology, against my will, I might add, I was still disturbed by how their consumption and waste elimination were essentially one continuous tube running through their bodies. Horrifying. "We have exactly 1 hour and 42 minutes before the Vraxians arrive," warned Commander Plex. "At this rate, we'll still be arguing about the plan when they dock." "We need a distraction," said Valentina suddenly. "Something to keep the Vraxians busy while we figure this out." Dave snapped his fingers. "I've got it, a hot sauce roulette." "No," said everyone in unison, including his fellow humans. Okay, Dave said, holding up his hands defensively. "Worth a shot. But what if we did create some kind of diversion? Do these Vraxians like entertainment?" I considered this. The Vraxians are a highly regimented species. They value order above all else. Entertainment is scheduled for precisely 2 hours every 7 days. "Sounds like they need our comedy holovids more than the mining colony does," Leo remarked. "Wait," I said, a bizarre idea forming in my mind. "Perhaps there is a way. The Vraxians are also obsessively proper about diplomatic protocol." "Go on," urged Valentina, looking intrigued. "If we officially register your species as seeking diplomatic recognition, the Vraxians would be required to follow first contact procedures rather than boarding and inspection protocols." "And those procedures are?" asked Rajiv. "Lengthy," I said with all 7 of my eyes blinking in sequence, my version of a smile. "Very, very lengthy." Commander Plex gasped. "You want to weaponize bureaucracy against the Vraxians? That's brilliant," suggested Dave. "Completely insane," finished Plex. "The paperwork alone would take weeks to process." "Exactly," I said. "And in the meantime, the humans would be protected by diplomatic courtesy." "Can we actually do that?" asked Officer Blip. "Register a new species without Confederation approval?" "Technically," I replied, "as a senior diplomatic officer, I can initiate first contact protocols at my discretion. It's an emergency measure designed for situations where immediate action is required. Like when an unregistered species with illegal weapons shows up in Confederation space," asked Leo with a grin. "Precisely," I confirmed, though the protocol has never been used for quite such creative purposes. "I love it," declared Dave, "beating bureaucrats at their own game. Back on Earth, I once got out of a parking ticket by filling out the appeal form in interpretive dance notation." We all stared at him. "What? It wasn't specifically prohibited in the guidelines." "Focus, Dave," said Valentina, but she was smiling. "So, Officer Quibble, what do we need to do?" "First," I said, slithering over to our communication console, "we need to transmit a first contact recognition request. Then prepare for the most tedious diplomatic reception of your lives." "I should warn you," said Rajiv seriously. "We humans can be very annoying when we put our minds to it." "Perfect," I replied. "That's exactly what we need." 1 hour later, our diplomatic reception hall had been transformed. We had arranged seating according to precise Confederation protocol, prepared the ritual greeting substances, which the humans found hilarious for some reason, and dressed the 4 humans in our spare ceremonial robes. Dave's was too short, exposing what he called his lucky socks, adorned with images of Earth aquatic creatures called rubber ducks. Remember, I instructed the humans, Vraxians value precise adherence to protocol. They will expect you to follow the 17 steps of formal introduction. "Which are?" asked Valentina. I handed her a datapad containing roughly 300 pages of instructions. "You expect us to memorize this in 20 minutes?" she exclaimed. "No," I said. "I expect you to mess it up spectacularly. The more procedural violations, the more documentation the Vraxians will need to file." Dave's face split into a wide grin. So you want us to be deliberately incompetent? Consider it diplomatic sabotage, I confirmed. Now you're speaking my language, said Dave, cracking his knuckles. I once managed to get banned from an all-you-can-eat buffet in under 6 minutes. How is that even possible? Asked Security Officer Zant. Creative use of a soup ladle and poor impulse control, Dave replied with a wink. Our ship's alert system chimed. Vraxian vessels approaching, announced Officer Blip. They're hailing us. On screen I ordered, smoothing my diplomatic robes. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of a Vraxian commander. Like all Vraxians, she had a rigid exoskeleton forming perfect geometric patterns, 6 precisely symmetrical eye stalks, and an expression that suggested she had never experienced joy in her entire existence. This is Commander HFY 7885 Alpha of the Vraxian Enforcement Division, she stated flatly. Be prepared to be boarded for inspection. We have detected illegal weapons signatures from an unregistered vessel in your vicinity. I straightened to my full height. Greetings, Commander. I am Senior Diplomatic Officer Zort Quibble. I must inform you that we are currently engaged in official first contact procedures with representatives of a newly discovered spacefaring species. Any inspection must wait until diplomatic protocols have been completed. The Vraxian's eye stalks quivered slightly, the equivalent of a human jaw dropping in shock. First contact? Why was the Vraxian Enforcement Division not notified immediately? We were just preparing the Form 7329B notification, I replied smoothly. As you know, proper documentation is essential. Indeed, she agreed, her tone slightly less hostile. However, our scans indicate presence of Class 9 prohibited weapons technology. The species in question, humans, come from an unaligned world outside Confederation space, I explained. They were unaware of our weapons regulations. As per Statute 42, Subsection 7, Paragraph 19 of the Confederation Charter, ignorance of law may be considered a mitigating factor in first contact scenarios. I could practically see the gears turning in the Vraxian's mind as she processed this information against her deeply ingrained respect for regulations. We will need to verify these claims, she said finally. Prepare for boarding. We will conduct the first contact verification procedure. Of course, I said graciously. We welcome your participation in this historic moment. As the transmission ended, Commander Plex turned to me with all 3 eyes wide. Are you insane? They're still coming aboard. Yes, I said, but now they're coming as diplomatic observers, not as law enforcement. And that makes all the difference. How so? Asked Rajiv. Because, I explained, the first contact verification procedure has 118 mandatory steps. And we're going to ensure each one takes as long as possible. When the Vraxian delegation arrived, Commander HFY 7885 Alpha and 2 subordinates with even more numbers in their designations, they were greeted by the sight of 4 humans attempting to perform the traditional Confederation greeting posture. Given that humans lacked the necessary number of limbs for the ritual, the result was Dave awkwardly balanced on one leg with his arms outstretched, and Leo bent over backward trying to touch his head to his heels, Rajiv attempting to dislocate his shoulder, and Valentina simply standing with her arms crossed, having given up entirely. What is the meaning of this display? Demanded the Vraxian commander. We're doing the greeting thing, announced Dave cheerfully. How'd we do? I've been practicing for at least 7 minutes. Commander Zix's eye stalks twitched violently. This is not the correct form of the 17th positional arrangement. Oh, really? Dave said with exaggerated surprise. Gosh, I must have misunderstood. Is it more like this? He proceeded to do what appeared to be a human dance move called the sprinkler. I intervened before the Vraxian commander could explode. You must forgive our guests, Commander. They are eager to learn our ways, but lack the physiological structures necessary for precise replication of our gestures. This must be documented, stated the Vraxian, producing a data pad. Physiological variants form 112C will need to be completed in triplicate. Of course, I agreed solemnly. Would you care to measure the exact range of human joint flexibility for the record? I believe it will take several hours to properly document. Hours? Exclaimed Leo. We can show you all our moves in like 5 minutes. Watch this. He began performing another human dance, this one involving rapid movement of the hips. The Vraxians watched in horrified fascination. What is this demonstration? Asked one of the subordinate Vraxians. The Macarena, replied Leo. Very important cultural ritual on Earth. We do this to communicate peaceful intentions. Incorrect, stated Commander Zex. The Confederation database contains no record of this ritual. Well, duh, said Valentina. You've never met humans before. How would you have records of our rituals? The Vraxian commander paused, her perfect logic momentarily disrupted. This is a valid point. I will need to create a new database category. While you're at it, added Dave, you'll need categories for the chicken dance, the electric slide, and the hokey pokey. All critical diplomatic gestures. The hokey pokey, repeated the commander, clearly struggling with the term. Oh yes, I interjected smoothly. I've observed this ritual. It appears to be a physical demonstration of their philosophical principle of putting things in and taking things out while rotating one's entire body. Most profound. Dave caught my eye and gave me a subtle nod of approval. The next 2 hours were a masterclass in bureaucratic warfare. The humans demonstrated increasingly ridiculous cultural rituals while I solemnly explained their deep significance to the increasingly flustered Vraxians. Each demonstration required new forms, new categories, and extensive documentation. Rajiv explained the complex human custom of high-fiving as a method of transferring spiritual energy between individuals. The Vraxians created a 17-page classification system for different types of high fives. Leo introduced the concept of knock-knock jokes as a traditional human verification of consciousness. The Vraxians spent 40 minutes debating whether "Orange, you glad I didn't say banana" was a security threat. Valentina, perhaps most brilliantly, explained that humans required regular application of hot sauce to their sensory organs as a way of maintaining alertness during diplomatic negotiations. The Vraxians were simultaneously horrified and impressed by this display of dedication to protocol. By the time we reached the traditional Confederation ceremonial meal, Commander Zyx looked ready to retreat back to Vraxian space entirely. "Is something wrong, Commander?" I asked innocently, as Dave attempted to teach Officer Blip how to perform something called the worm across our dining hall floor. The humans are, she struggled to find the words, undisciplined. "Oh, this is nothing," I assured her. "Wait until they begin their traditional post-meal activity." "Which is?" she asked with clear dread. "I believe they call it karaoke." The commander's eye stalks drooped in defeat. "Senior Diplomatic Officer Quibble, a word in private?" We moved to a corner of the room, where the commander spoke in uncharacteristically hushed tones. "This first contact is proving challenging to document properly. My team has already filled our data storage capacity with required forms, and we have only completed 27 of the 118 verification steps." "Yes," I agreed solemnly. "Humans are a complex species." "Perhaps," she suggested, her voice dropping even lower, "it would be more efficient to allow you to continue the first contact procedures and submit the completed documentation to our division at a later date?" I pretended to consider this. "That would be highly irregular, Commander." "Are you suggesting a deviation from standard protocol?" All 6 of her eye stalks shot up in alarm. "Certainly not. I am merely suggesting a temporary procedural accommodation." "I see," I said thoughtfully. And what of the weapons violation investigation? That was your primary reason for boarding. The commander glanced back at the humans. Dave was now attempting to teach the other Vraxians how to do the robot, with predictably disastrous results given their actual exoskeletons. Perhaps, she said carefully, as you suggested earlier, this could be considered a case where ignorance of Confederation law is a mitigating factor. The humans clearly had no intent to violate regulations. So you would be willing to issue a temporary exemption? I pressed. A provisional cultural allowance, she corrected firmly, pending full review by the Confederation Council. The humans must still ultimately comply with weapons regulations, but they may be granted additional time to make necessary adjustments. How much time? I asked. The commander's eye stalks twitched in what I recognized as the Vraxian equivalent of a shudder. Given the complexity of documenting human cultural practices, I believe a standard Confederation cycle would be appropriate. The cycle. That was nearly 2 Earth years. More than enough time for the humans to complete their deliveries and return to their territory. I believe that arrangement would be acceptable, I said, struggling to keep the triumph out of my voice. I will inform the humans of your generous accommodation. Please do, she said, already backing toward the airlock. We will prepare the necessary exemption documentation and transmit it to your vessel. No need for further in-person verification. 20 minutes later, the Vraxian ships were rapidly departing our position. On the bridge, my crew watched in amazement. I can't believe that worked, said Commander Plex, his anxiety glands finally beginning to deflate. Bureaucracy, declared Dave, who had joined us on the bridge, truly is the universal language. I prefer to think of it as creative diplomacy, I said. So what happens now? Asked Valentina. Now, I replied, you have approximately 1 Confederation cycle, what you would call 22 Earth months, to continue your trading activities while technically being under diplomatic observation. And after that? Asked Rajiv. After that, you'll either need to modify your weapons systems to comply with Confederation regulations or remain in non-Confederation space. Dave grinned. 22 months is plenty of time to establish trade routes and diplomatic relations. Who knows? Maybe by then, Earth will be ready for official first contact. Are all humans like you four? I asked, suddenly concerned about the future of the galaxy. The humans laughed in unison. Officer Quibble, said Leo, we're considered the weird ones even by human standards. That's both reassuring and terrifying, I admitted. We escorted the humans back to their ship, which our engineering team had helped restore to working order. Before departing, Dave presented me with a case containing 12 bottles of various hot sauces. A diplomatic gift, he said with a wink, to commemorate the beginning of human Confederation relations. And this one, added Valentina, pointing to a bottle labeled Supernova Death Punch Extreme, is for Commander Plex. Need to help with those anxiety glands. Commander Plex backed away in terror. As we watched their strange, asymmetrical vessel depart, I couldn't help but feel that the galaxy had just become a much more interesting and spicy place. Do you think we'll see them again? Asked Officer Blip, who had taken to performing the Macarena at random intervals. Oh, I'm certain of it, I replied. Humans seem to have a knack for finding their way into situations they shouldn't be in. Should we report this encounter to Confederation headquarters? Asked Commander Plex, ever the rule follower. I considered this for a moment. We'll file the standard first contact report. But perhaps we'll omit certain details, such as Operation Hot Sauce. Is that wise? He pressed. Wise? Perhaps not. But I believe it's right. The humans may be chaotic and heavily armed, but they're not malicious. I think they deserve a chance to find their place in the galaxy. Besides, added Security Officer Zant, who had been suspiciously quiet during the whole ordeal, I've already tried 6 of their hot sauces. If we report them, the Confederation might ban imports. I stared at him in shock. Officer Zant, you've been sampling contraband? He had the decency to look embarrassed, his skin flushing a deep orange. For security purposes, sir. Had to make sure they weren't dangerous. And your conclusion? I asked, struggling to keep a straight face. The one called Dave's Special Reserve should be classified as a weapon of mass destruction, he stated solemnly. But a delicious one. Working mode. 3 Confederation cycles later, I received a transmission from a familiar but unexpected source. The message was simple. Hey Zort, guess what? We found those space pirates you said didn't exist. They were very surprised when we introduced them to our illegal weapons. Also, hot sauce exports to the non-diplomatic regions are booming. Turns out the Glarkon marauders love spicy food. Who knew? P.S. Earth is sending an official diplomatic delegation next month. Fair warning. They're way more boring than us. Maybe mention the hokey pokey in your report? For old time's sake? Dave Crew. I leaned back in my relaxation pool and sighed. The galaxy would never be the same again. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. The end.